Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Today in True Crime and Portraits podcast. I'm your host, Jane Flowers. Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode is about true crime and portrait photography. I'm speaking today about William Eggleston's world-famous fine art photograph called Untitled, Greenwood, Mississippi, 1973, informally known as The Red Ceiling. The Red Ceiling was taken in my father, Dr. Tom Boring's home at 508 MacArthur Street after the raid on his home on January 31st, 1970. My father's home was raided, and the police did not have a warrant when they went into his home. When the police went into his home, they found 4 pounds of weed. Shortly after the raid on his home, William Eggleston took pictures of his house and photos of my father inside of it. These fine art photographs have been shown all over the world at portrait exhibitions. They have been spoken about in magazines and in films. Unfortunately, most of the time they speak about my father's life and unsolved murder, it's being fabricated. William Eggleston and other people that help him promote his work have spread lies about my father's life and unsolved murder for William Eggleston's benefit and gain. I have mentioned this before, that murder sells, and this is one of the main reasons that William Eggleston tries to promote his photography with nude photos of my father along with my father's unsolved murder. It is because he's going to get more sympathy and more shock with his photos that will make people want to buy them when you put the word murder with them. The Red Ceiling photograph and the story of my father's unsolved murder has made William Eggleston millions of dollars over the many decades now. William has stated that this photo was taken at 103 Virginia Street, where my father was murdered May 10, 1980. This is not the case, actually. The photo was taken at 508 MacArthur Street shortly after the raid on his home. There's a newspaper article in the Greenwood Commonwealth that describes what was in his home at the time of the raid. Everything that is spoken about in the newspaper article correlates with the objects and things that are in the photograph Untitled, Greenwood, Mississippi, 1973, informally known as The Red Ceiling. Here is that newspaper article I shared in my father's biography, The True Legacy of Dr. Tom Boring, and I'm going to share it again with you now. Listen closely how the newspaper article speaks about these objects that correlate with the objects in the Red Ceiling photograph. On January 31st, 1970, narcotics agents, police confiscate marijuana and pre-dawn raid. Patience, hard work pay off. An early morning raid on a North Greenwood residence turned up 4 pounds of marijuana and pipes for smoking the drug. Arrests were Dr. Tom C. Boring, Jr., 38, Greenwood dentist, and a female companion, Mona Citro, 18, formerly of Oxford, Mississippi. They were charged with violation of state and narcotics laws. The pair were transferred to the LaFleur County Jail shortly before noon today, where Sheriff John Attersbury set bond at $10,000 each. They were still in jail at noon. The raid was conducted on a search warrant by state narcotic agents led by Charles Snodgrass of Jackson and Greenwood Police, headed by Chief Curtis Larry, shortly after 5 a.m. today. Larry said when officers knocked on Boring's door and advised him that he had a search warrant, he then refused to open the door. The door was kicked in by police, and in doing so struck Boring along the left cheek, inflicting a small cut. The marijuana was spread onto newspapers on a rug in the den. Professional utensils, boilers with sleeves, and graters were on the rug, and a small amount of the drug had been processed. Incense was burning in the fireplace on the den. Pipes used to smoke the drug were found in the den and the bedroom. A plaster cast of the rear part of a woman's anatomy hung over the fireplace in the den, and a small amount of marijuana was adhered to it. A record on the photograph in the den was entitled "The Jimi Hendrix Experience." Subtitles to the record included "Are You Experienced?", "Purple Haze," "Manic Depression," "Hey Joe," "Love or Confusion," "May This Be Love," and "I Don't Live Today." Here's the part in the newspaper article that states what correlates with the items that are seen in the photograph Untitled, Greenwood, Mississippi, 1973, and in the photograph Untitled, T.C. Boring, 1972, Greenwood, Mississippi. The article states, purple fluorescent lights were scattered about the den, along with hippie pictures on the wall. Okay, I'm going to stop for 1 second and point out that there were hippie pictures on the wall of my father's bedroom with fluorescent lights in his bedroom, and they were also in the living room. The newspaper article goes on to say, the master bedroom was painted walls and ceiling in a reddish-purple color. Purple lights adorned the room, and hippie expressions were painted on the walls and the ceiling. I'm going to stop here again for another second and point out that you see this reddish-purple color in the two photos that I'm talking about that William Eggleston took of my father and his home at 508 MacArthur Street. The newspaper article goes on to state, a king-size bed covered most of the room, with a cylinder believed to contain much oxygen occupied one corner. Tubes and a mask were attached to the cylinder. I'm going to stop here and point out that these items were seen in the photograph Untitled, T.C. Boring, 1972, Greenwood, Mississippi. There's no denying that these objects are clearly seen in this photograph and have been spoken about in this newspaper article, which proves my point that William Eggleston's photo, Untitled, Greenwood, Mississippi, was taken at 508 MacArthur Street. Now, you all see what I'm talking about and how William Eggleston and his family are using my father's unsolved murder to make millions with nude photos of him and his home. William is really wrong to be doing this to me and my family. Tom was his friend, and how could he be doing this knowing that he is defamating and fabricating his friend's life and unsolved murder for his benefit and gain? What a sick, sad individual William Eggleston is. One day my father will have justice for all these slanderous comments and fabricating claims that are made about his life and unsolved murder. I spoke about the red ceiling in my father's biography, and I want to share with you all what I said in his biography about William Eggleston's red ceiling. Here's what I said from page 104 to page 108 of my father's biography, The True Legacy of Dr. Tom Boring, an Unsolved Murder Mystery Biography. It was very common for William to be photographing Tom and his home in the early 1970s. Tom met William sometime in the 1960s, as Tom's second wife, Brenda, has stated to me. Photographer William Eggleston was raised in the South, not too far from Greenwood in Sumner, Mississippi. When Tom and William were hanging out together in the Delta, they would spend most of their time drinking beer or whiskey, and sometimes they were using drugs together, such as Quaaludes. While they were spending their time together drinking alcohol and getting high, William was often photographing Tom and his home. There are a total of 9 photographs that I am aware of that William took of his home. The most famous by far out of the 8 photographs of fine art photography in this book, taken by William Eggleston in Tom's home at 508 MacArthur Street, is called Untitled, Greenwood, Mississippi, 1973, informally known as the Red Ceiling. William has stated that this photograph, the Red Ceiling, is so powerful that in fact I've never seen it reproduced on any page to my satisfaction. When you look at a dye transfer print, it's like red blood that is wet on the wall. The photograph was like a Bach exercise for me because I knew red was the most difficult color to work with. A little red is usually enough, but to work with an entire surface was a challenge. It was hard to do. I don't know of any totally red pictures except in advertising. The photograph is so powerful it shocks you every time. Quote by William Eggleston. At the time when this ionic photo was taken, William has stated that he was lying on Tom's king-size bed next to Tom and Brenda in Tom's bedroom. They were laying together nude on Tom's bed and were taking a break from having a threesome. My father and William would on occasion have sexual relations per accounts of my mother. She has stated to me in the past that my father often had orgies in his home in the late 60s and early 70s, and William on occasion would participate in an orgy, and at other times William would solely be alone sexual with my father. My mother said that she knew my dad was really attracted to William. He had stated a few times to her how much he really loved her. My father was bisexual, but he was never really open to many people about his bisexuality and his attraction for men and not just women. He was more open to people that he knew close to him that were his friends about his bisexuality. One friend in particular that knew about his bisexuality and commented this so to me was his friend Clint Petite. Clint was also bisexual and was a very good and close friend of my father and my mother. So this makes me wonder, is there more to the reason why William Eggleston was taking nude photos of my father in his home? He and my father were sexual together, and it makes me think that William took the photos of him and the nude ones for his arousal, an erotic fetish possibly. When looking at the Red Ceiling photograph, it definitely has that erotic feel to it, as so do the nude photos of my father have the same erotic feeling that you see with the passionate red colors within the photo. This photograph was developed by using a dye transfer process and is one of the earliest photos William has printed using the dye transfer process. Dye transfer process in the early 1970s was expensive and cost around $1,000 for the first print, and for this reason it was mainly used for commercial photography and magazine publications during this time period. Eggleston inevitably took the dye transfer process to a whole new level and transferred the mundane world with his distinctive supersaturated color, as you see in his photograph, The Red Ceiling. Depicted in the photograph is a naked light bulb centrally located on the red ceiling in my dad's bedroom over his king-size bed. White electrical cords run from the fixture to beyond the corners of the photograph. Two of the white power cords pull your vision towards the naked light bulb. The third power cord leads to a black light fixture, and just below the black light fixture is a black light Kama Sutra poster. You can see in the Kama Sutra poster a chart of sexual positions and acts corresponding to the signs of the zodiac. The Kama Sutra poster depicted in Tom's bedroom still sells at Walmart for $11. Curator Mark Holborn stated in the film, "Imagine the colorful Mr. Eggleston. The red ceiling is simply a red ceiling with white diagonal cables and a light bulb hanging down in the middle. There's a sutra frieze. There's something pornographic here almost. It's the site of a murder, a horrible murder. The walls are bleeding. There is something terrible has happened in this room. It could also be witnessed by a fly, you know, buzzing around that bulb in the absentine heat. The room probably stinks. One picture of a red ceiling and it can carry all that. It is about surface and it's not about surface. It is about what it depicts and it's not. It's about something much more." To me, Tom's daughter, this photograph is just a photo of my dad's bedroom from the early 1970s and nothing more. William liked his photo of the red ceiling so much that he sent it to the legendary photographer-director John Swarovski at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. John recognized the photo for its unusual genius. This photo, like many of William's other photographs, have also been sought out by quite a few musicians. Musicians like David Byrne, Primal Scream, Jimmy Eat World, Joanne Newsom, and Cat Power are just a few of the ever-growing roster of musicians who have licensed Eggleston's work. As well, William's close friend from the band Big Star, Alex Chilton, used the red ceiling photograph on the cover of his second album, Radio City. Radio City was recorded during the fall of 1973 at Memphis Ardent Studios and was released on February 1st, 1974 by Ardent Records. William has stated about the red ceiling photograph that he gave it to Alex Chilton to use. "It's just a picture I offered out of the blue when he had run into him one day in Memphis. Alex has stated at the time to William, 'I'd love to use it.' William said to Alex, 'You're welcome to.' And apparently there's no more to that story per the account of William Eggleston himself." This is all I had to say in my father's biography about William Eggleston's red ceiling photograph. Partial of the history that I know about this photograph comes from what my mother told me about her experiences with my father and William when this photograph was taken in my dad's home in the early 70s. I wrote my father's biography so I may preserve his legacy that has been fabricated and slandered over the many years by his friend William Eggleston. This concludes my overview of the red ceiling. Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for future episodes I will be dropping daily. Please subscribe and leave a comment. Until then, I will see you next episode. Goodbye, everyone.